Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muqtadar Khan. I'm a professor at the University of Delaware. I teach in the Department of Political Science and International Relations. I want to thank Detective Timothy Costetta for inviting me to address this important group. Delaware Decision Makers, I think, is an interesting initiative. There are many challenges that we as a state face in the near future, and I hope this group will play uh, an important role in addressing some of those challenges. Today's discussion is about violence. It's a very depressing topic, but also a very important issue that we all need to confront. I'm going to start by sharing a little bit of statistics with you. I'm sure all of you are familiar with that, but it took me about 5 minutes on the web to browse and collect this data. It's readily available, and I think it's important that you understand the context from which I'm speaking. For example, in the last 1 year, in 2017 alone, we have had about 300 plus mass shootings in the United States. 300 plus mass shootings in the United States. I mean, the country has been shocked by what happened in Las Vegas and by Sutherland, Texas, but really we have had over 300 mass shootings in this country. In this year alone, mass shootings are defined by FBI as more than 4 people being shot and killed in one location. And according to the trackers of mass shootings, we have had over 300. Uh, in this in the year of 2016, we have had 17,250 homicides. 17,250 people have been killed in the United States violently in the year 2016 alone. To give you an idea of how big that number is, we have lost fewer people in all the wars that we have fought in the 21st century. More Americans have been killed in the United States in 2016 than all the Americans that have lost their lives in all the wars that we have fought in the 21st century. Iraq, Afghanistan, in Nigeria, in Somalia, put them all together, and we don't have 17,250 casualties, fatal casualties overseas. That number is that big. The number for for Delaware is 63. It looks like a tiny number for a state with less than 1 million in population. 63 is a pretty high number. Our homicide rates are going up at the same rate as the country. But one of the biggest challenges that we as a nation face is the opioid addiction overdose problem. In 2016, over 64,000 Americans died as a result of the opioid epidemic. In the state of Delaware, over 308 people have died in 2016 as a result of the opioid addiction and overdoses. These are catastrophic figures. And finally, let me add one more. This is not about violence per se, but over 44,000 people died in 2016 by committing suicides. 44,000 suicides in the United States, and the state of Delaware over 130 last year alone. So if you look at the, the deaths and violence that Americans are perpetrating on themselves, it's probably the highest anywhere in the world except those few places where states have broken down and there is genocide or wars taking place. But what is to me also the most scary factor is that nearly 44,000 people in our country last year felt that their lives were so miserable and so depressing that it was not worth living, and they took their own lives. This is the richest country in the world. In the opinion of many people, the best country to live in. We have freedom, we have prosperity, uh, and we produce the world's greatest entertainment things, movies, television, games, etc. And yet, life is so miserable that 44,000 people took their lives themselves. So clearly, for those of you who are trying to address these problems, our challenges are significant. While there are specific things that we can do in terms of law and order, in terms of passing laws to make guns inaccessible to people who may indulge in mass shootings, trying to reduce crime, etc. Those are specific policy issues. I think one of the things that we really need to focus on is to change the culture, of violence. If you look at our movies, if you look at our television series, if you look at one of the most popular shows that is going on, the HBO's uh, show, I don't even see the Game of Thrones, all of these glorify violence. They make violence normal. Our heroes, whether they are superheroes or detectives or military people, go out there and kill large number of people, and it's okay. So we are desensitizing people to death in our country. Plus, our country, especially the United States, is often at war in far away places, and we kill people outside, civilians often, and we justify that or underplay that as collateral damage. So there is a discourse in this country which is making death acceptable, violent death acceptable to the population, and I think that is the problem. The population needs to be in a state of shock when something like what happened in Las Vegas happens. How can somebody take the life of nearly 60 people and shoot 500? And then the country moves on as if nothing happens. And I think that is the biggest challenge for how do we transform our culture so that we really begin to value life. I find it astonishing that people who claim to be pro-life are also pro-gun. How can you be pro-instrument of death and also be pro-life? To me, it is incomprehensible. We need to change the way we talk about violence. We need to change the way we glorify violence. That is important. I recently saw this movie called Dad at Home, in which it's a comedy film in which they try to replace violence with dancing. It was a frivolous and funny thing to do, but I was thinking about it and I say that why can't our social media, our news items continue to present violence as what it is, something extremely horrible, something that takes life itself. I don't intend to preach, but I feel very strongly about this. The reason why I'm not with you in person today is because I'm on my way to Manila, where I'm talking about smart cities, and one of the things that I'm talking about is that those who believe in smart governance recognize that security is the most important thing that we as governors can provide to our societies. If our cities, if our states, if our countries are not safe, then we have failed in our governance. The biggest function of modern states is to monopolize violence, and when we allow so much violence to happen in our societies, the state has failed in its primary function, which is to control violence. After my visit to Manila, I'm also traveling to Malaysia, where I'm going to talk about peace. It is from an Islamic perspective, and the point that I'm trying to make is that unless individuals, cultures, and societies are at peace with themselves, they cannot become peacemakers. And I think that one of the things that has happened to us in this age of late modernity is that Americans and people all over the world are not at peace with themselves. We are not at peace, and therefore we are unable to make peace. It's a huge challenge. I don't have all the answers. I'm not even able to articulate the problem in a way in which it will facilitate thinking of answers, but this is my message to you. We need to fundamentally change our culture. We need to de-glorify violence. We need to eulogize. We need to valorize. We need to praise peace and peacemakers. The real heroes in this world are those who avoid violence. The real heroes in this world are those who make peace. And I hope that Delaware Decision Makers will do something to send this message, not just to people in our state, but to people in our country and in our world. Thank you very much.